On today's Technobabble, how to do a high-key background in your videos.
This is Tech No Babble, your weekly source for church video and graphics news, perspectives, tips, and tricks. And now here's your host, Paul Clifford.
Hi everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Technobabble. I am your host, Paul Allen Clifford, and I'd love for you to join the conversation. So if you could head over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/contact. There you can leave your message, or you can find some of my other contact information, like my email address, which is paul@trinitydigitalmedia.com. And you can leave some feedback, give me questions, comments, snide remarks, whatever you have, and that is perfectly okay. So before we get started, I do want to mention just one thing this time, and that is about my streaming host, churchstreaming.tv. Churchstreaming.tv provides all the bandwidth and video hosting, etc. for the churchtechcast.com network, and I could not be more pleased with them. In fact, I'm doing some freelance work this weekend, and I have to leave before the last show of the week. So how do I accomplish that? No problem. With churchstreaming.tv, I can have a pre-recorded show loaded up, ready to go, and I'll be recording that a little bit later, and have that play exactly at the right time. And that's just something that's incredible to me. I had this as an idea, and I said, hey, how do you do it? And they said, well, we're working on it, and hopefully we'll have it done by the time you need it. And that's just what they did. They worked really hard, and they got it up and running, and I've used it before, and I'm going to use it for 2 shows coming up, and hopefully in the future I'll always have a show in the can, as it were, and so if something comes up, I can just get online and say, hey, play this one instead, and there will be content straight on through, even if I'm on vacation or if I get caught in traffic or what have you. And that's just the power of churchstreaming.tv. So if you would like a free trial, head over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/churchstreaming, and they will get that running for you. Just as in the way of full disclosure, I do want to say that I do get a little bit of money if you do that, so it does help the show. And quite frankly, I think that they're, right now, of the ones that I've tried, they're one of the top choices of live streaming hosts for churches. And because they're keyed into the church market, they know the unique needs. So head on over there and give them a try. So let's talk about a high key. Now, you might not know that terminology, a high key background, but you know what it is. And you might have tried to do it without any success. I know the first couple of times that I tried to do it, it didn't so much work right. And that's because I hadn't done it before, and then I found out some tips and tricks, and it just made it easier. So when I say a high key background, I want you to think of the background of the I'm a Mac, I'm a PC ads. Or if you've seen the videos of Johnny Ive describing the latest Apple product, then you've seen a high key background. Anytime someone is against a white background and it looks like it's just this perfectly white room that's perfect in every way, that's a high key background. In fact, one of my favorite movies, my daughter is named after one of the characters in The Matrix. When when Neo first gets out of the Matrix and he wakes up in the real world, when they start training, they go to what's called the construct. Now, the construct is just a high key background. Lawrence Fishburne and Keanu Reeves are standing in a room that's either has what I'm about to show you, or much more likely, because they're in Hollywood, it's probably especially constructed for this situation. So there are a few ways that you can do it, but I'm going to tell you how I do it on the Eternity Changers show that I do every Wednesday, and also the Creating Church show that I do on Tuesdays. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to show you what I have, and please excuse the messiness. And so let me just do this. Okay, so that is my high key background, and you're probably thinking, Paul, that looks like a sheet. Well, it's not exactly a sheet. It's in fact a muslin background. So muslin is a type of fabric, and it's what photographers use when they are shooting against a white background. So let me raise up my microphone, and maybe I'll tilt it up so I can show you some stuff about my background. And of course my mic got unplugged. So let me tilt this up. Okay, so here I am in front of this background, and you're probably thinking, Paul, that I can see it looks like a sheet. It has all kinds of wrinkles and shadows. Okay, let me show you just a couple of things about this. First off, this isn't, as I say, it's a muslin background. I got it off of Amazon. I think it's a 12 by 16. So on the top here, you can see it right over there. And if you're listening to the audio, you'll just have to imagine that it has a loop in the top of the background that it enables me to put it on a pole. Now, I have a low budget here, and so this is actually a painter's pole from Lowe's. And you'll see off on the edge, it looks like there's a 2x4. Yeah, that's a 2x4 holding it up. So that's basically how I've created what holds the background. Now, in order to get a little more tension, I have the painter's poles all the way between these two walls in my home office, and on either end I have brand new clean plungers. My head's in the way here. Yes, I bought those plungers specifically for this, and so they're clean and new and everything. So I just took off the rubber so that it has something to buffer against the wall so that it doesn't scratch it up, etc. So that's kind of how I'm holding it in place. You'll see that it looks all bunched up. Let me straighten it here just a second. So once I have pulled it tight and clamped it in place, which is one of the key things that you need to do for a background like this that is made out of a piece of fabric, is you need to pull it as tight as you can to get rid of as many wrinkles and therefore shadows as you can. Then probably the next thing that you should do is you can light it. So this is one of the key things that you need to remember is you light the background separately from the subject. So let me change over to the preset on this webcam that will allow you to see what the background looks like, and that will also tell you a little something about it. Okay, so there you see that it's gotten very dark, and you're probably thinking, well, that's actually the opposite of what I want. Oh wait, just a second. I'm going to turn on some lights and we'll see if we can't make it look a little more like what you expect. Aha! So, I have the autofocus on here, but once I step in front, this isn't perfect because I'm not shooting it at exactly the same angle because I want to show you more about it, but you'll see that by putting a lot of light on it, in fact it's so much light right now my back is a little toasty because I'm standing very near the light. And this is a halogen light, or what they call in film a quartz light. I've got the autofocus on, so if I step out of the way, it tries to refocus. This light is, I think, a 750 watt light, so it's putting out a whole lot of light, whereas what is hitting me in the face is much less. So that's one of the keys, is lighting the subject and the background differently. Now I haven't gotten the preset dialed in perfectly for this webcam yet, because a webcam isn't really supposed to be able to do this. The way that I get that beautiful video that you might have seen on YouTube for the Eternity Changers show, which you can go to bit.ly/eternitychange and see those shows. The way I do that is I shoot that with my DSLR, which is right there. And so I have the ability to dial in the presets, dial in the gain, the shutter speed, and by gain I mean ISO, the shutter speed, the iris or aperture, and the ability to just decide a lot more than I can with my webcam. But you're looking through the webcam, so that's why I'm giving you that information. So you'll see that it's gonna not know exactly what to focus on, but you see how flat and white that looks when that light is on. So that's probably the main thing, is you want to use a lot of light, much more than you would on your subject. Your background needs to be lit separately. So I turn that off, and let me go back to the other preset. I'm sorry for all the spring noises. Let's go back to the other preset, and let me take this down here. Okay. Okay, there we go. That's much closer to my normal shot here. So you might be thinking, okay, that's how you do the background, is a lot of light on the background, and then you light the subject differently. How do you light the subject? Well, let me show you the lights that I'm using for the subject. And these are actually less expensive than the light that I'm using on the background. Now, I should clarify that, here I'm going to turn the camera again, that I have that light off on the side just to fill in some shadows, as well as this light off on the side to fill in some shadows. So I have a couple of extra lights, and you might have noticed that that last light is a compact fluorescent. That's something else that's very important. It's very important that all of these lights have the same color temperature. Compact fluorescents tend not to have the same color temperature as incandescent lights, but you need to get them warm balanced. So they do have different types of compact fluorescents. I would recommend, if you're going to do this with compact fluorescents, as I have, get the 100 watt equivalent. That's what all the lights I'm using are. So basically I've got 750 watts on the back. That is its legitimate wattage. That's how much it is. And then on each of the sides I've got the equivalent of 100 watts. So I've got the equivalent of 950 watts of light on the background. On me as the subject, I have instead 100, 200, 300, 400. I have 400. So it's about 40% of the light is on the subject. 4/10 of the light, 40%, or 2/5 of the light is on the subject, and the rest is on the background to create the difference, because we need a lot more light on the background than we need on the foreground. Now, let me show you the lights that I have on the foreground, on the subject. So if we pan over here, and please excuse the mess, I've just done some work and I haven't cleaned up completely. So that is a soft box, and you're probably thinking, oh Paul, that cost what, $500-600? No, I think it was around $30. Got that off of Amazon. There you see my DSLR to the side, and then we'll go up to my other light, and that is one of those clamp lights like you can get at a hardware store. I have a Y adapter in it so that it can take 2 compact fluorescents, but that's the other light that I have. So this is my key light, this is my fill light, and when I'm at the desk, that is my hair light, or my backlight, or my kicker, depending on who you talk to. So what you're seeing in this shot is the soft box, which it's a newer NEWER R, I think it, or is it EER, Newer, whatever, softbox, and it's intended to be used with a flash as a photographic softbox. But what I did, and I'll show this, I don't know that I can get to the back, I took a piece of MDF medium density fiberboard and cut it out in the circle that was on the background, and then I cut a hole in that and I put in a light fixture, and into that light fixture I screwed one of the Y adapter things that you can get at a hardware store to put in 2 lights. So I have 2 in my softbox that are 100 watt equivalent compact fluorescents, and 2 in the clamp light using one of those Y adapters, again 100 watt compact fluorescent lights. So 400 watts of equivalent light. I can't remember off the top of my head how many lumens that is, but you can look it up and do the math appropriately. So that's really the 2 keys here are you have to have a background that is as free from wrinkles, as free from texture as possible. You have to hit it with a lot of light to get rid of any imperfections, because our eyes, even with all that light, my eye in person can tell the difference. It just looks like it has a lot of light on it, but I can still see the wrinkles. I can still see there's a stain because I got this used. I think it's a couple of drops of coffee, it looks like to me, on one side. My eye can still see the difference, but the camera, which can't see as much difference in light as our eyes can, when you say, okay, I want you to allow this much light so that the subject looks good, and then you put in a lot more light on the background, then the background looks all washed out, and that's good. That's one of the things that we want to do, one of the things that we want to accomplish. You're basically using the limitations of the camera to your advantage when you're doing a video like this. So you can't do this, by the way, with an iPhone, unless there's an app that allows you much better control, but I'm not familiar with one. There's like an almost DSLR that I say almost, but it doesn't have the control. You really need the ability to say, okay, don't adjust the focus, don't adjust the gain, don't adjust the shutter speed, don't adjust the aperture, don't adjust anything. This is right, and lock that in. And having locked that in, then you put on way too much light on the background, and it confuses the sensor basically, and so that it only shows the maximum amount of light it can. So therefore it's white, even though in real life it's not. So it's taken me quite a while to get this dialed in right on my DSLR, and I'm still working on getting it dialed in correctly on the web camera, because it's even harder to do on the web camera. Even though this is a Logitech HD 1080p webcam that can, with the webcam settings app, I can control stuff a lot better, but getting it exactly right just is still a challenge. Now you might notice that I'm using this. I'm using a this microphone is a shotgun mic, and I'm actually about to upgrade to a different shotgun mic, which has an XLR on it. This has a mini jack on it, and hopefully that's going to come in next week, and we'll be able to make sure that that's better sound, or at least the same level of sound. With I don't want the noise floor to be higher, especially given that my computer is cranking at double speed over here to do all this live. So a shotgun mic is a good choice for this. You could use a lavalier depending on what you're doing. It might be okay, you know, if it's announcement time, no big deal if they see a lav. If it's a drama where someone is in heaven, big deal. So you would want to use a shotgun in that case. I have this on this articulated arm on purpose so that, as you can tell, there's not much space between my desk where I shoot these shows on Thursday and where I shoot the Tuesday and Wednesday shows, so I can move the microphone just that little distance and get it taken care of. So that's kind of the basics from an equipment standpoint, and from a lighting standpoint. Let me go over, well, if you have a permanent space that this is always going to be set up in, you do have another option, and that is you can paint a wall white. And to make it possible to get that smooth floor look, you don't want the right angle, the 90-degree angle of the wall going to the floor. What you do is you have a carpenter make a smooth, like a quarter of a circle going out to the floor, and you paint that white. You keep it all smooth and everything, and ideally you're going to want to keep people from stepping on the white floor, which should be the exact same color white as the background. Keep them from stepping on that with their shoes so that it doesn't get dirty, although you could repaint it every time they do, but that could get really annoying. So instead of doing that, what you would do is you would have them either only do it in their socks, or maybe put some gaff tape on the bottom of their shoes so that you don't get dirt on the floor there. So that's an alternative. You can also get seamless paper at camera stores and such to do this. When I first started out, the first few Eternity Changers videos, I'm up against a white projection screen like you would use for a slide projector. In fact, it's one that I rescued from a dumpster, and that worked really well because it's made to reflect white light. But in that case, I was sitting with the light right up against my back. It was very uncomfortable, but it did what I wanted it to do. So you have some options. To get a setup like I have, let's see here, the Muslin was about $50 on Amazon. This is a Lowell Toda light, my main light, and those used go for about $100. A couple of random fixtures, you can just find those around. The two compact fluorescent bulbs are about $2 each, so you're looking at about $150 for the background, and then for the softbox that was about $30 plus some odds and ends. The clamp light, I think that's $3 or $4. So the entire setup, not including the camera or the microphone, is probably about $175. So it is within the reach of most churches to be able to do this kind of video. Now, next week, I'm going to be talking about some of the editing stuff that you need to do, because you're not totally done when you're done shooting it. There are a few things that you need to think about and some cheats that you need to consider. So we'll go through those next week in how we do this, and I'll show you some examples where I got very close but not exactly right, and what you need to look for. Part of what I do is I try and get this done in a day, and it's very time intensive with my computer. If I had one of the new Mac Pros with its bazillion tera just really fastness, then I could do it much more quickly. But because of the software that I'm using and because of the computer that I'm using, it takes me about a day to put together the 8 to 20 minute Eternity Changers video that I do. And most of that is the computer crunching on it. My actual time is about an hour. So last night I got the Wednesday Eternity Changers video up right about midnight. And part of that is that I took some breaks, but still I had a couple hours here, a couple hours there, another hour there of computer just crunching on stuff. So that's time that if I was charging someone to do this, it would be more expensive time-wise than it needs to be. So that's another situation where a better computer would pay off, and better, well, different software would pay off. So until next time, I hope that that gives you some ideas on ways that you can do this, ways that you can use this technique to go out and change eternity. Till then, I'm Paul Allen Clifford with TrinityDigitalMedia.com.